right. Cool. So we're live on both. So this is going to record everything. So this is how it's going to go on YouTube. So awesome. So we'll wait like 60 seconds and then we can introduce ourselves, because right now what it does is it's telling people, hey, these guys are going live and whatnot.
Okay.
So, but typically these things, Armando, I don't really see it because around lunchtime on a Wednesday, so like you have a ton of people tuning in. What I like doing is obviously sometimes people tune in, but then they see some of the clips and then they go to the YouTube channel and they see it there, right? And they can reach out to us. So cool. All right. Hey guys, Eric Estevez, Eric the Lender here, and we're back again with Live with Eric and Friends. A couple of weeks ago, I was in the air, so I couldn't go live with a friend of mine, but I'm back with a very special guest, a dear friend of mine. He's my own personal financial advisor. He's a fraternity brother, and we've grown to be close friends. And my most recently, he's added the title of golf instructor to the list. But I want to welcome Armando Patiño. Armando, please introduce yourself to everybody on all channels here today.
Well, thanks for having me, Eric. My name is Armando Patiño, and I am a financial advisor. I've been a financial advisor for about 5 years, and prior to that, I've been in the financial service industry for over 20 years. So I've been doing this for a really long time.
So you an OG in finances game, the financial advising game,
especially in the insurance and definitely in the financial planning, budgeting, things like that.
Yeah, guy, and this is super important, man. Listen, I just shout out to everybody who supported me. I just released the book a couple of weeks ago. I actually brought you a signed copy today, Armando.
Awesome.
And I really like to educate people about home ownership and the fact that it's one of the tools to really build wealth, right? The average homeowner is 40 times wealthier than the average renter. But that's not all, right? Even though I educate people about home ownership, right? Once you have that home, once you have that asset, right, you're going to continue to build that wealth over time. And now you need somebody in your corner, you need a team to help protect those assets and help those assets grow even more. And this is why it's super important, because, as we get older and as we're doing better financially, and, we've made a lot of mistakes in the past, right? We work together so we can really help, and a lot of people in our own community, but just anybody overall to understand, right? To have that conversation early about, wealth management, about, investments, because it's super important. So I have a question for you, Armando, right? So what got you? So did you go to school for this? Is this something that you said I wanted to do, or did you just kind of stumble upon? How did you come into this world?
Well, I went to school. I went to Rutgers, and I went to school for pre-law. I wanted to be a federal officer.
Okay.
And then that just didn't work out for me. And so then I went into the insurance world. So I just kind of went into that. But what drove me to financial planning and investments was my time during COVID. So I had a lot of time to reflect. I was a sales manager. I was managing a team of over 30 sales reps. And just kind of, it was heartbreaking, like seeing them go through their struggles and everyone had like a different concern or issue during that time, whether it was a family member or something. And I just felt like I had no control. So like what started to really resonate for me was ownership and being an entrepreneur, and then opening up my own firm and growing a business so that I can have control over the destiny of like my employees and things like that. So that was a very big motivator for me to kind of just become an entrepreneur, start my own business. Also, like looking at my income and then looking at how much taxes I was paying. So I was well over six figures, over 200,000, and then the amount of money I was paying in taxes. So then that really got me listening to.
So you experienced that pain personally.
Yes.
You're like, all right, I gotta do something different.
Yeah, I said something has to change here. So, and I knew that it wasn't going to be by continuing to like hammer the same nail. I had to think different, think outside the box, look at the different entrepreneur opportunities that are out there. Where can I translate my skills, right? So like when you switch careers, or you switch kind of what you're doing, you lose momentum, right? You lose that skill equity. And so I wanted to be able to just move into a different field, but like enhance my skills. And so once I was able to find this particular opportunity, it just blew my socks off. Like it was just an incredible opportunity to amplify what I believed in.
Mm.
So when I work with clients, I'm not just trying to position investments. I'm looking at their entire financial picture holistically, and then making recommendations. One of them could be like, let's buy an Airbnb. Like, you have enough assets here, you have way too much income, your W-2 income is super high. Like, let's start some short-term rentals here so that we can do some financial movements and really offset some of these taxes.
Yeah.
And so those are some of our recommendations here. Is we're taking a look at everything holistically. So it's pretty powerful.
Man, I think, you mentioned something about that. You experienced some pain on your own, and you want to make sure that you learned about the loopholes and how to get around that, so that now you use your own experience to help other people, right, overcome obstacles, or we use our mistakes, right, to help other people say, hey, don't do this. This is what happened. This is how I learned it, right? And this is why it's so powerful working with a coach. You got to realize that you talk about financial advisor, and I want to talk about what you think is one of the biggest misconceptions about financial advisor in a minute, but they're like a coach, guys, right? We were talking, like, right before here, we were BSing, and we were talking about health and peptides, and we're in our mid 40s and higher, right? And we said, okay, we want to really focus on our health, and we need people in our corner, whether it's a clinic, whether it's a coach, right, to help us achieve our goal much faster, right? Because you have somebody, this is what they do every single day. When people want to buy a house, when they get advised by myself, right, we're going to achieve that goal faster because I know the tips and the tricks and how to get around it. When you are figuring out, okay, what do I have to do to plan for retirement, right? What are your certain goals? You need a coach. So, right, and that's something that I call myself a mortgage advisor. You're a financial advisor. What do you think, right, Armando? What's the biggest misconception about financial advisor? Like, it's like people saying, "No, I don't think I need that right now." Right? Like, what's the misconception right now?
Right. So one of the biggest things that we run into is that someone feels they don't have like enough liquidity, right?
Yeah.
They don't have enough cash, or they're not ready for it yet.
Yeah.
And then I always, and there's two different roles really that someone can have. So you could be a financial advisor. And so a financial advisor is basically just advising you on your investments. And they're buying and picking and designing your portfolio. So they only care about that part of your life. As far as then if you're licensed properly and you're a fiduciary, then you can be a financial planner. Right. And so financial planning is much different than advising. And the financial planner is more of that coach. And so that's really how I build my practice, is providing that coaching service. But if it's time to move into investments, I switch hats and I become a financial advisor, and then we're kind of constructing their portfolio and making those investments. But the biggest misconception is that people feel that they need to have like $500,000 or they need to have $1 million, whether it's in retirement or cash, to be able to sit down and start working with someone. I wish I would have known that the role of financial planner existed like the moment we started working. Because then I would have done much different. I would have made much different decisions with my dollars than I do with them today. And that's really what I like to talk about and work with my clients, is like, how are we positioning these dollars? When should we start investing? And then, as far as the investment itself, that's like question number 7. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's really like, why are we doing this? What's the purpose of this? And giving the why behind why we're creating these accounts, so that they have meaning. So that way, when it does get hard and times get tough, you still make that contribution, you still make that payment, and you keep it simple. Like, even $25 a week, right? We all go to Starbucks, we all go to lunch, and that costs $25. You can literally take $25 and put it into your investment accounts and have success. And so it's that simple.
I mean, that's powerful, right? Because a lot of times we say, "Oh, we don't have enough liquidity, we don't have enough cash." But the more the more you learn up front, right, you're going to start making decisions. You're going to be able to call Armando up and say, "Hey, this is what's going on." You could be a resource to somebody in your family. Somebody in your family might be going through something. They might be getting an inheritance, right, or whatever the case may be. And it's good to have somebody in your team. Like, here's what I challenge anybody that's on here. What I challenge anybody is, who's your team around you, right? So if you're married, right, you have, your spouse, you guys should be your biggest cheerleaders, right? But you're not experts in financial planners if you don't have that, or advising mortgages, you have like, who is your team? Who is a team around you that's going to help you achieve your goal? A lot of times we don't assess that. I still am building the team, right? Because when you look at ultra successful people, right? They'll say, "Let me run it by my CPA. Let me run it by my financial planner. Let me talk to my attorney." Right? Who even though you may not be where you can get to, why don't you start assembling that team now, building those relationships now? So Armando, like if somebody says, you know what, I want to learn more about it. Like I don't make too much money, or if somebody says I'm making six figures, I'm not saving enough money, I got to do something differently. Should they have a conversation with you just so you can how does that initial conversation look like typically?
Absolutely. So we would basically have an initial conversation with, there's no pressure, and I ask a couple of questions. I get to learn a little bit about you, and try to understand what your goals or what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
I have a large portfolio from the real estate side of things. So I have clients that have 10, 15, 20 properties, and they're cash flowing, and the cost basis of the house is really low, and so they're either looking to exit those properties and get into a larger, the Grant Cardone effect, right? Get more doors and get into bigger financing.
Yeah.
You've talked to some of them for me.
Yeah.
And so I have clients that are doing that, and so it's just a matter of understanding that there is someone that can help you. And like I said, I wish I would have known this when I was first getting started. How much money I need to accumulate to never work again. I mean, all those things now are important, right? As we get older. Yeah. But imagine knowing that when you're 24, 25 years old, that if you had $2 million, you never have to work again.
Yeah.
Like that would have been the goal, instead of going on vacation and buying cars and doing things. I would have just invested that money and got to the 2 million.
Yeah.
And I'd be done working. So it'd be super powerful. And so kind of thinking about things that way, I don't know anything about electricity. Like I'm not going to go there and start doing electrical work.
Yeah.
So even with realtors or right, like you can buy and sell houses on your own, basically with online tools, but I always use a professional.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wouldn't pretend to kind of want to go through that. So it's important to work with someone. Yeah, you can invest on your own, but do you have a strategy? What's your plan, and how are you executing?
That's super important, right? You talked about, I love the word coach, right? I know you're planning people and you're planning, but if you have a conversation now, guys, like your life can change in an instant. In a year, you can get raises, right? You get, you're single, you get married, now you have a dual income household, right? These are all things that life events. When you have a connection with Armando, and you may not talk to him, you may talk to him once in the year, right? In the beginning, right? But as you start accumulating wealth, right, you're going to start picking his brain and say, hey, what do I need to do? And the fact of the matter is that he has a large portfolio, and now he knows, like, this person is where this person wants to get to. And now, but this is how this person got to. So he uses that person's strategy and so it's super important to have those conversations early. I know that right now, when you're in, people are in their middle age and they're in their 40s and say, all right, I might have to retire in 20 years, 25 years, whatever the case may be. Believe it or not, right? That first 40 years in your life, right? And it's not just, I'm not saying it's just for people in their 40s, right? Because you want to talk to somebody ASAP. You want to talk to them ASAP, right? The younger, the better. But what I'm saying is that I guarantee you that with the mistakes and the things that you've done, and now you're professional, you're seasoned, right? You know what you're doing. You can make more money, right, in the last in 5 years, right, compared to the last 20 years that you've made if you have the right strategies, because you don't know what you don't know back in the day. So like if you're young and you now say, okay, I'm gonna this is my mortgage advisor, my realtor, this is my financial planner, this is my attorney, if you start building that team, you can start picking people's brains, and you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And you are successful. You deal with a lot of people. You handle a lot of successful people's finances. So why wouldn't I want someone to say, hey, let me pick his brain? Before I do this, we were just talking about stocks, and a friend of mine who's going to be doing a startup, and we talked about those kinds of things. And it's about sharing ideas, having conversations, so you can do better for you and your family, right? So as far as the question that I have for you, the next question that I have, is really about the biggest mistake people do make with money, right? And listen, I will say this, like I'm just understanding, right, how money works. I was a bull. I was grinding.
Mhm.
How do I make more money? How do I move industries and I'm like, and sometimes I thought to myself, you know, the more I grind, the more money I make. More money solves problems, right? But that's it's just working hard doesn't necessarily replace working smart.
Right.
So I'm learning. So like, what is when you're advising, when you're talking to people, right? And I know you've talked to a lot of you've talked in seminars and you've gone to conferences. What are like the biggest mistakes people make with their money, Armando?
Right. I mean, some of it is boring, right? So like, so some of the most successful clients that I have that have the most wealth have the lowest expenses. So they've earned their wealth themselves. So it's not like they've inherited or they worked at a startup and then got some IPO money or anything like that. It's that they maintain their expenses very humbly, and then they continue to raise their income. And so it's an easy equation, right? Like income minus expenses equals, profit, right? And so they're able to increase their profit without increasing their expenses, and they tend to be the most successful because then they're funding their cash accounts, they're funding their retirement, and then they have money left over to invest. And so the quicker you can kind of get yourself there, the more successful you're going to be. But then on that note, right, like obviously we live in 2026, inflation's up 3.8% this year. Like things are different in the world, gas is up, everything's up, and it's kind of hard to make ends meet. But taking $25 a week and investing it, you'd be surprised what it can do for you. I have a quick story for you. Before I started this business, I opened up an Acorn account. So it was before
Acorns.
Acorn.
Yeah.
So Acorn does the automatic investing for you, where it says it like takes an acorn and turns it into an oak, right? And so I started investing, and I opened this account with one of my assistant managers at my old office. And what we said was we were going to pack lunch. Say we're not going to waste any money on lunch, right? So how much you spend on lunch typically? $10, right? And so during the week that'd be $50. So I said we're going to take the $50. We're going to invest it into Acorn, and then and then we'll see what we have after a couple of years. And so what ended up happening after 2 weeks, I ended up paying double, right? Because I ended up going out to lunch, but I was still doing the Acorn account. You know what I mean? And so, but I just kept that withdrawal coming out of my account to $50. And so when I decided to leave my job during COVID, take a guess where I got the money from to start my business. Acorn. It was $21,000. Wow. So I cashed out the Acorn account, and just $50 a week turned into $21,000 because I've been doing it for a couple of years. And that was my startup capital.
That's so dope.
So just a simple concept like that. Take your lunch money, invest it. In a couple of years, you'll have a few $1,000s to start your business. So I think that's another misconception about money. You think you have to have a lot, or you think you have to have a lot left over. And what you really have to do is just kind of commit to it like another bill and say that $50, that's for my investment, and I want it to grow. And then one of the things I like is to invest more frequently. So some people just do it like once a month or once a quarter, they'll drop money in. But what you really want to do is increase the frequency of the investment. So do something weekly, whatever you can afford. So $25 a week, $50 a week, $100 a week. So multiply that by 4, that'll be $400 going into the account. But then what that does is it takes advantage of of your averaging into the market. So then you get a better price on what you're buying.
You got there's a lot of nuggets in there, right? What you said, like in summation, is like, the people that do well and invest and that grow their wealth faster are those that don't live beyond their means, right? And I think that this is a pandemic that we're experiencing, especially in this country, when we have comparison analysis, right? Like we comparison is a thief of all joy, right? But then we're on Instagram and we're seeing somebody's highlight reel. Oh, there's somebody got a bigger house. Oh, I gotta have a nicer car. I gotta have this nice watch. I gotta have this. And I think that that's something that it's a pandemic in where we live at, right? And I've been a victim to that pandemic, right? And as we get older, we say, okay, you know what, that's not important, right?
But you know what I have seen?
Yeah.
I have seen some people that are online, and I think it's a good message, but sometimes it gets lost, right? Is that they'll say that they'll buy a rental property and have the rental property pay for that luxury item.
Yep.
Right? You've heard that, right? Like I'm gonna buy a 3-family and have the rental income pay. I think that's awesome.
Awesome.
Right? Like, because not only do you get the write-off on the property, you get a write-off on the car. And so, like, depending on how, if you're structuring yourself properly, you can get write-offs on all those decisions, because you're taking your money and you're making businesses, right? You're creating.
But how would you know that if you don't have a coach in your corner, right? To call up an advisor, right? To call up a CPA. And that's why it is about building a team. You gotta realize that, listen, I just started working with a CPA a couple of years ago. And I'm like, all right, this is my guy forever. I was 43 years old when I started working with a CPA. Right before I was doing my own taxes, before my father was doing my taxes, right? And as things get complicated, right, you need people that have done it before, right? But going back to the whole thing where comparison, like we make more money. Right? Somebody makes more money. Guess what? We want to spend more money.
Yeah. So for me, what I try to do is, and I try to get as much of my investments to pay for any of like the things that I want to do. So whether it's vacation, fund my IRAs, or fund my business, like I'm trying to get my investments to pay for any of those things that my income is not able to cover, or that I don't want it to cover. You know what I mean? So like anything that's not a necessity and a want, right? There's a difference between a necessity and a want. Do you need that or do you want that? And so for most of my want items, I'm using my investments and the growth to be able to get that for me, so that way I don't feel it on a monthly, weekly, or quarterly basis. So
but that takes discipline, just like anything else, right? Like if you're going to the gym, and I can't talk, like I'm trying to work on my health too, right? It's about discipline, right? So a lot of people don't have the discipline, and including myself, I never had it. I'm getting better at it, right? But
that's what a good coach does, right? He holds you accountable. He holds you accountable for the different things that you're trying to accomplish. Like if we create a certain account for you and it's for a specific purpose, and then you call me and say, "Hey, listen, I want to go on vacation." Like I'm gonna bring that up. I'm gonna be like, "Why are we doing that?
Why are we doing that?
Do you need that, or do you want that?
or do you need to spend? Or do you need to spend $15,000 on a vacation, or can you spend $5,000 on a vacation? Right. And I think that sometimes when you have that's a great word, accountability. When you have people, you're gonna think twice. You're gonna be like, "Holy shit! Like, what would Armando say if I did this?"
Man, it's funny. People call me and they'll say like, "Oh my God, I was thinking about you this weekend. What would Armando's gonna kill me?"
What would Armando say?
Yeah.
And I think,
and I have a rule of thumb: if it's tax deductible, let's do it. You know what I mean? So like, if you're buying something and it's tax deductible, I love it. I love it. So if it's a car, right? Especially if it's over 6,000 pounds,
you get the SUV tax,
short-term rental. You could offset a lot of W-2 income with short-term rentals. That's huge for us. And so I had a client where we saved them, and I think I introduced you to him. We saved them like $130,000 in their taxes.
Insane.
And while I don't plan taxes or do taxes, it was our recommendation that got them to the table.
A lot of times, if it's again about the team, right? So it's about working with that person's accountant, CPA.
So we worked directly with a CPA.
So that way you guys
he loved the strategy, and then he executed, and they were ecstatic.
And that's where it's at, guys. Listen, I mean, I think that we grind our whole entire life, and we have the energy, but man, who the hell wants to grind as hard as we do now in our in our earlier life, in our back half of our life, right? We should let our money work for us and do the things that we enjoy and we love. We don't want to die miserable, right? So I think it's really about having that conversation, and the earlier you start, the better. I started a family at a very young age, and I was just grinding. And then it was about, going from one apartment to a nicer apartment, renting, and then it was buying a house, but then it was the nice vacations, and then it was this and then that. But again, now it's about simplifying, and I agree. I think that we overextend ourselves sometimes, and this is a debt-ridden, like we live on debt. So let me ask you this, right? Is it better? Let's say I get a bonus, I get a nice sum of cash. Is it better to pay off debt or to invest that money?
Pay off debt.
Yeah.
If it's like retail debt, right? So if it's like credit card debt, depending on the mortgage interest rate you have,
Yeah.
and then what your dream is. Like I have clients that their dream is to pay off their mortgage,
Yeah.
to be mortgage free, and so I'm not going to get in the way of that.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
if that's your dream and that gives
You're
you
gonna help
satisfaction,
You're gonna help facilitate.
because then I know once that mortgage is paid, they're going to have more cash flow,
Yeah, yeah,
and then they're going to accumulate faster,
Yeah.
and then they're going to make their next decision, and then
Yeah.
hopefully I'm part of that. Like, let's create a portfolio now that I had an extra $3,000 a month because I paid off my mortgage,
Yeah.
and let's just stack this money. Some people, that's their dream, and I don't want to get in the way
Yeah.
of that. Obviously, depending on their interest rate. So I have all those details, right? So when I sit with a client, I do like an in-depth, an in-depth kind of intake. So I do an in-depth intake. Where I know how much they're paying on their mortgage. I know how much they're paying on their credit cards. I know how much debt they have. And so if they ask me, like, what debt should I pay off first, I'll let them know. I'll let them know and say, we're going to get rid of this, and that, because these things aren't tax deductible. These things are just taking away your cash flow. Let's get rid of this stuff immediately. All this other stuff that you have here, all of this is for your business. It could be a business loan. All of this is still tax deductible. So we're kind of, separating them into separate buckets to see which ones are still helping you. What's good debt, what's bad debt, which I'm sure you've had conversations with people about that. What's good debt, what's bad debt, and then we work from there.
So is it because if you just got $10,000, is it because paying off $10,000 of high interest debt is probably going to save you more money than taking that $10,000 and investing it in a vehicle? Like,
absolutely. So I saw someone's interest on a Macy's statement was like 33%. Right. And so if they have $10,000 on a Macy's card, that investment of paying that off saves you 33%.
Interest. Yeah.
What I can't pick an investment that makes you 33% in the market.
Yeah.
I mean, we could throw some darts and try to do that, but there's nothing that I could say tomorrow is going to make you 33%, because I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I'd be doing that all day long.
Yeah, all day long. You're right. So guys, that's a nugget from here, right? So pay off high interest debt first before you use that to invest. So speaking of like returns, right? Like you manage a lot of you have a portfolio. Mm-hmm. Like what is in your world, what is considered a good return on the investment?
So a lot of our work is based off of the S&P 500.
Okay. And
so on average, the S&P 500 is between a 9 and 10% return annually for the last almost 97 years. So if you take a look at it, so that's a long run, right?
So that's like a benchmark.
Yeah, that's a benchmark. So my goal is to either try to do that or better, depending on what is acceptable risk for every individual I'm talking to. Got it. So everything is customized to that particular individual and what's acceptable, right? So like if I tell you, listen, if you give me 100,000 and this thing goes to 60, what are we doing? You know what I mean? And if he says we're selling and I'm running, then I said this portfolio is not for you. I was like, so let now if you give me 100 and it goes to 80, how do you feel about that? I'll stay in it because I want to make my money back. That's the one for you, and that'll determine how risky I am in that investment.
So the intake is super important for you to analyze a person's.
It's like a therapy session.
Yeah.
It's like, because I really want to know you. I want to know what we have, and then I'm going to start. Obviously, there's some low hanging fruit that I'm going to recommend immediately to start making some gains, whether it's on the cash flow side, the debt payment, things like that, or even just some on their employer retirement plans. Like some of my clients don't take full advantage of the employer retirement plans and some of the power that these plans have. Like there's something called mega backdoor Roths. You can actually put $70,000 inside your 401k and then take out the Roth portion or the non-taxable portion and roll that into a Roth, even if you're over the tax limit. And so some of these guys make $400,000 or $500,000 and they tell me they don't qualify for a Roth. That's the first thing they say to me. And I'm like, yeah, you just don't understand how your employer plan works. Let me show you. And then we can actually execute that Roth strategy, that mega backdoor Roth. And they love it because now they have money in their 401k and they have this massive Roth that's accumulating for them in an investment. And we continue to do that over, however long they work with me. And then they just have 2 buckets of money.
So do you see, do you see that most of these employer plans allow for that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then no one takes advantage of it. Everyone thinks that the limit is just whatever the IRS limit, the 23,500, and it's actually not. It's actually 70,000.
So if anybody that's working and has a 401k, right, and is working for them, will it hurt them to call you and have a conversation to figure out how you can continue to maximize that?
No. And then, well, you know, and then obviously, I'm not sure if everyone knows, but the power of the Roth is whatever you invest into the Roth will never be taxed again. So you almost want to create a system, whether it's through the 401k plan or a cash brokerage account. So what I do is I take my returns and I fund my Roths. Do you see what I mean? So like, I'm not actually paying for my own IRA. My investment returns are paying for my Roth IRA. And so creating a system where you're constantly funding your Roth, and so think of it as like washing your money. Like you're taking it from being taxable.
So you don't have to pay. So if you make $100,000 in your investment, right? Obviously, right, when it comes tax time, you will have to pay, right, $100,000 unless you take that and roll it into a Roth.
Well, no, the taxes are going to be a little different depending on each scenario. So like if we pull it out of the 401k non-taxable, that's a rollover. So that's a non-taxable event. If we pull it out of a cash account, depending on how you're invested, there could be capital gains, but then the capital gains can be eliminated a couple of different ways. And so depending on that situation, we'll make that decision, right? So it's going to be different for everyone. So we would have to understand how each one of those accounts are working and then make that recommendation. But you know, there's some investments that you could make, like municipal bonds that get, you know, 5-6%, and some people are happy with that. And so think about, like, you run a business and you want to put a certain portion of your portfolio in a steady fix, but you want some sort of return that's better than locking it up in a CD. You can get 5 or 6% on 100,000. That's $6,000, but that $6,000 is not taxable because it's in a municipal bond.
That's powerful.
You know what I mean? Think about some of the business owners, you know, that have $1 million sitting on the sidelines. You can put that in a municipal bond and get $60,000, and then you fund your Roths. And so you take that tax-free money. So if you're structured properly, we can do that all day long.
Well, like the power of information. And listen, this is what Armando does on a daily basis. Like, he lives and breathes this. He gets trained on it. He's up on the most current news or most current strategies. You don't know what you don't know. So it's super important to start building your team now, right? So that way you can have that intake and say, this is where I'm at now. And then 10 years from now, wow, remember 10 years ago when we did your intake, where you were and where you are today?
I'm doing that now. I have some clients that I'm working with for 5 years, and their net worth has just shot through the roof. I mean, the market has done most of the work. But the way I tell them is, we just put everything. It's about location. Like, we just put everything. We consolidated, and then we put some horsepower behind everything, and then their accounts have just multiplied. So it's super important, man. I want to switch gears to, like, you know, to real estate. So, you know, you have people that are obviously buying and selling real estate, and people have to understand. And I know they work with a CPA, you know, or if you don't have a CPA and whatnot, like, you know, there's capital gains, right? There's all these things. I think that, in, like, if you've been living in a property, primary residence, for example, for more than 5 years, you don't pay capital gains. I think up to $500,000 if you're married.
If you're married,
a single 250.
Singles 250.
Right. So that's a financial planning strategy. Make sure you're executing that. So you could also raise your cost basis by having the receipts to any repairs. I'm pretty sure you've changed the roof, the HVAC, did the bathrooms, the floors. If you keep good records, right, of all of those repairs, say you bought the house for $400,000, but did $200,000 of repairs, you can get under that $500,000 exclusion, and then you're not paying any taxes on that. So you want to make sure that you are properly keeping those documents, no matter how far back. So if you did the roof 20 years ago, that still counts.
Listen, and learn from me, because I was flipping houses and stuff, and that came back and bit me in the butt, right? Because I didn't keep records of things, and but super important. Like, if you're looking to sell a house, right, you don't know these implications. Like, you talk to somebody before you list the house, right? What are some of the strategies that you can do, right? It's super important. So that way you know how to save money, because a lot of times it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep, right? Yes. And that's something that I'm trying to instill in my brain, right? And I'm trying to maintain that certain lifestyle is keeping more, right? Keeping more money. But if I have a question, it's about having a phone call, scheduling a consultation with Armando. Say, hey, what do you think about this? And you know, it's super important.
So one of the things my team does is we do cost segregations on properties.
Okay.
And so that helps you write off short-term rentals. So we have a lot of high net worth clients. They have, shore houses, Airbnbs all over the country, and they're looking at that for like a tax savings opportunity to offset W-2 income. So that's when we implement the cost segregation. We share that with the CPA. And then the clients are happy because they're able to write off a significant portion of that purchase in year one. So the whole thing about the cost segregation is to accelerate the depreciation. So you could either do 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever the CPA wants to do, depending on how much W-2 income. But essentially, if you look at, on your 1040, how much you've paid in federal income tax, you could essentially get that all back, right? So some of these clients are paying $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. So imagine doing that for 3 or 4 years. You essentially get your down payment back, and then you go do it again. So you're just really and not paying federal taxes because but the thing is, you got to hold the property. So there is some information. You got to hold the property for over 27 and a half years.
Because if not, there's penalties.
Right. Because when you sell it after you've done a cost segregation, there's a huge payback. So this isn't like you can't use the strategy if you're flipping. So this is not a flipping strategy. But if you're doing like a rental, like a beach house in New Jersey, right, that these things pass on from generation to generation. That's something that I'm personally going to do. That's something I would do on that kind of property, right? Something that I'm going to hold forever in my family.
And that's a strategy that I'm going to be instilling too, because even if, let's say, listen, New Jersey is an appreciation state right now. The forecast of homes is, we're going to see upward of about 6% a year over year appreciation, right? The national average right now is about, I think the expectation is about 5%. So New Jersey is slightly beating that because we're in a high demand, low inventory area, right? And we're in New Jersey, the most densely populated state across the most densely populated city in the country. So if I'm going to buy an investment, for example, I got to put a bigger down payment, right? That's part of the mortgage risk on there. But I don't have to buy a house in New Jersey. I could buy a property in Ohio and still have that what did you call it? What was the strategy?
Cost segregation.
The cost segregation strategy, right? Obviously, it might be a lower. It's a lower priced home, but if you say, okay, you know what? To buy a multifamily property in New Jersey for $600-something thousand, I'm gonna need $50,000, or I'm gonna need $120,000 to put as a down payment. Well, you know what? If you don't have that, okay, well, you can look elsewhere, right? Obviously, there's some risk involved, and you want to talk to a mortgage advisor and realtors and whatnot. But it doesn't have to be. Your investors don't have to be in the state that you live in.
Right.
It could be where the opportunity is there, right? So just like, and that's why having a conversation. I talk to a lot of first-time home buyers, but I talk to a lot of investors as well. Are they trying to flip properties and get hard money? Are they trying to buy with DSCR loans? What is your ultimate goal? Same way you have an intake, I do an intake, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that from a real estate investment perspective, we could talk about how to finance those things, but then you also want to talk to your financial advisor to say, hey, this is what I recommend. These are some of the things that my other clients have done and has paid off dividends. So super important, guys. Like the whole message of this is, and this is why I like to do these lives, because I think that, there's a lack of education that's out there. Listen, I'm a lot of us are first generation buyers. Mm-hmm. A lot of us say, okay, we want to buy a house and we've achieved the American dream, but no, there's another level to that. Like you got to protect and grow your wealth.
Yes.
Right. And while buying a home is one of those long-term strategies as well, right? The more tools you have in the toolbox, the better decisions you're going to be making for whatever you want to accomplish for you and your family. So you got to talk to Armando, right? You got to talk to Armando. Is it too late? So, all right, you know what? I'm 50 years old. Right. I got 12. I'm going to retire when I'm 65. Like, is it too late for me to start investing?
No, absolutely not. So
I'm not 50, by the way, but I'm just using that.
No. Yeah. It's never too late. I have clients that range all kinds of ages, and they're just getting started in investing, whatever whatever their situation was, or they never just came around to it. They didn't feel comfortable. I have a lot of customers that are Latino and didn't trust anyone, and so they view me as a resource, and they're starting to dabble in the markets and do certain things, and they're just blown away by some of the things that we can accomplish by generating wealth, reducing their taxes. and really started like pick up momentum based on the strategies that we're picking.
And you know what, you mentioned something right about the whole acorns thing, and saving money was 50 bucks a week or whatever the case may be. As we get older, right, what should happen is we care about the shiny objects less, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want freedom and stability. So, right, and then you have kids, they're out of college, whatever. Like, honestly, as you get older, your expenses should come down, because raising a family, how many kids you have?
I have 2 daughters.
You have 2 daughters, right? They both they wrestle. One of them wrestles.
My older one wrestles,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
my
yeah.
younger one does dance.
Dance, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna high school, college,
Yeah.
right? That adds up, right? Those are expenses, and we want to make sure that we set our kids up.
And that's actually one of my goals, to get my investments to pay like the interest to pay for college, so that way it doesn't feel like I'm actually
paying for it.
I'm letting the market do the work, and then use that to be able to pay.
Well, who would not like to have that goal, right? Or achieve that. So the thing is that it gets expensive, and as we get older, like if you say, "Oh, I'm too old," well, you know what? Honestly, our expenses should have decreased. That nice fancy car that we wanted in our 30s and 40s to keep up with the Joneses, we don't need that crap anymore, because we're more secure in ourselves. Right? We don't need that. Like, we have our circle, and what we care about is that circle, right? To make sure we're protected there. So in the end, right, you might be saving a lot more money in your older years, where you can say, you know what, in your later years, let me take this money and invest it, so then that way I don't have to work as hard as I'm doing now, right? So super important, man. Like, this stuff, I love talking about this stuff, because if we can help one person, from these videos, I think we've done our job. And on the way here, I was talking to you. Actually we have an appraisal that was conducted a couple hours ago in the house for somebody that found me right here on this live. Right, I was with a friend of mine, Haisal, who's a realtor, and we were at Romo, which, shout out to Romo and DJ Adani. We had my birthday dinner there, last week, and somebody found us during this interview. She reached out to me, and we got her pre-approved, and she's gonna close on her house in a few weeks. Shout out to Rosa, right? So this is powerful. And this is one of the reasons why we do this, is because we want to educate people. And we might not have people on the spot, but you might come back a year later. Oh, I remember, Eric and Armando having that conversation. And and now you see me on social media, right? Armando's going to tell you, his social media handles, and when we post this, we're going to tag him. Follow him, right? Because you may think you're not ready now, but you know what? Something might happen in 6 months or a year where you say, you know what? I remember that conversation. Right. Let me call up Armando. Oh, hey, listen, Armando, I'm getting inheritance. Right? I don't know what the hell to do. Can you help me?
Absolutely.
Right? These are the things that we need to have available, because I can tell you right now that most of us, including myself, up until a few years ago, right? Up until a few years ago, like when we say, okay, who's your doctor, right? We know who your doctor is, right? Because health is super important, right? This is my primary physician. I get it, right? Okay, you might have an accountant, right? And sometimes, honestly, accounts are not all created equal, right? Like, depending on the situation, you might have a tech preparer compared to a CPA, totally different things, right? But honestly, even myself, Armando, like, people ask me who are financial planners that you have. It will take me some time to come up with it.
Right.
I think my challenge to everybody that's watching this is okay, who, like, even if you're not using one now, do you know somebody you can call tomorrow if you need one? Right. And that's my challenge to you guys, is to have that person readily available, have that conversation, have that intake, because you may think you don't need it now, right? But you may need it sooner than later, right? So awesome.
And I just think it's important, again, back to the point I made, I just wish I knew that there's people out there that you can just have a conversation with and say, what are some ideas, instead of trying to figure it out on your own. It's funny, like the picture you posted on ChatGPT, right? Yeah. Like, that was a great flyer, but it doesn't look like me.
Yeah.
So like it's going to give you somewhat of a correct answer, but it might not necessarily be giving you the best answer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like it like mimics the truth.
Yeah.
And so you got to be careful, and you got to make sure you're working with someone that you can trust.
Yeah, agreed. And listen, I think that this information age that we're in sometimes is too much information. I think we have information overload. what is correct, what is the best, right? And I know that a lot of us are getting more and more comfortable talking to ChatGPT and Claude. I've done it, I do it. But I think still to this day, right? Like, we talk about AI, right? I was talking in a meeting the other day, a BNI group, and I go, well, AI is something that if we don't adapt into our life and to increase efficiencies, we're going to be left behind. We as advisors have to adapt it into our work life, but don't sleep on RR, right? The real relationships, right? Don't sleep on, you coupling, AI with being able to call Armando and say, hey, this is what is this accurate? Can you, because it's not accurate all the time, right? It's still thinking, but in the end, that AI model is not going to tell you the story that Armando is going to tell you about someone that he helped, right, get a 15% rate of investment of return because he invested in this, and this, right? So in the end, right, like, those experiences, those real life examples are the ones that are gold because we learn from people's past experiences, right?
Yeah, like, is AI going to help you overcome your fear? Like, are they going to give you the confidence to make a decision that potentially could be the best decision of your life, right? And so I think that's really what's important. Like, when you work with someone, is that they're going to give you a clear path, and then give you the confidence to move forward if you're working with the right person.
And listen, you don't have to be best friends with your mortgage advisor or your financial planner or your doctor, right? But when you like them, when you know, like, and trust them, right, that increases the quality of your life. Yeah. When you can go and play golf with your financial planner, right? Yeah. That increases the quality of life because you're working together, you're making money together, and you enjoy each other's company. And to me, I think that those relationships, right, is what really makes life worth living, right?
And that's actually that's how I want to build my practice. Is I want to have clients that, like, when I'm getting ready for retirement, like, hey, you're in Florida, let me go visit you. Let me go visit you. Hey, you're in California, let me go visit you. So that's my goal, is to have people that I consider part of my extended family that I'm just going to enjoy working with, enjoy seeing them prosper, enjoy seeing them grow, because that's what it turns into. It turns into like a lifetime relationship.
Listen, I've been building my business. I've been repurposing my business the same way. Like, I want to be able to work with referral partners that I know, like, and trust. I can go have a cigar with. I can go play golf with. I can go have a happy hour with, right? Because in the end, if it's not, it's all fake. And listen, when I'm out there and you're hanging out with people that you don't like and you can't stand just because of a buck, guess what? That's energy spent there, right? Yeah. The peace of mind is spent. I want to go back home and go to sleep and say, you know what, I had a good time today. Or I want to say, I was able to hang out with somebody I know, like, and trust, instead of saying, man, I was miserable. I don't want to do that. I want to work with as I get older, every minute counts, and I want to spend it with people that I know, like, and trust. And if you can make money together, even better. All right, so we're going to do a fast round. I'm going to give you a fast round, right? You don't have to go into detail, but I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to ask you two things, right? And you're going to pick one. So here's a fast round. The first one, stocks or real estate?
Both.
Both. All right, good answer. Pay off mortgage early or invest?
Invest.
401k or Roth IRA?
Both.
All right.
You can do both no matter how much money you make. People don't know that. Don't know that. You can do both. So if you're above the IRS limit, do a backdoor Roth. Everyone could do a Roth IRA. Everyone on this chat should have a Roth IRA. Roth IRA by far is the best way to go.
Love it. You answered this one already. I'm going to skip. All right. What's the best money advice you received? Best money advice you ever received or learned?
Grow your principal. So just stack your money and then invest it properly so that you have it's like that account becomes a new member of the family. And I didn't believe it until it started happening. But it's like a third. Let's say you're married, you have your wife's income, you have your income, and then you have your investment account's income. And then it allows you to make different decisions in your life. So grow your principal. Back to, like, if you knew you had $2 million and you could never work again, what would you do? You'd stack that money instead of doing all the different things you spend money on. Yeah. So grow that principal. Because then it gives you options, right? You can go into a property, fix it up, flip it, refinance it, and then make it a short-term rental and get your money back, right? You kind of do that. And so it's the same kind of thing, but you can't do that unless you have that principal ready to go.
Great advice. I'm gonna chime in here too. And one of the best advices that I've heard is look at your account every day, right? And and meaning like your personal checking account. Like, I don't know if it's healthy to look at your investments every single day, right? But what I mean is the where you spend the most, where you have the most income, like your income coming in and going out. I never did that. Listen, I was like, my wife helped me with some of these things. I was like, I'll just earn, blah, blah, whatever. I didn't see where my money was going, right? I'm pretty sure that right now, if we take a second, right, and we go and look at all the subscriptions that we have, right? We probably could save $100 minimum at least, right? Just by canceling subscriptions that we don't need, right? But now what I do is, I'm trying to get, I'm working better, and I'm trying to do this with my wife, where I'm saying, what is this? I just wound up getting, I wound up spending so and so on this. Hey, cool, let's cancel this stuff.
Yep.
Or, damn, we're paying $480 a month with between 4 phones. I'm pretty sure we can switch to a carrier and pay $300 a month.
So we actually do that with our clients. So every year we schedule a time that we're going to do a review of their expenses.
Yeah.
And then we go through all of their charges. Yeah. And it's something that I do personally. So like every January, me and my wife, we go to dinner and we whip out the statements. Then we just start going through it. A lot of wine, right? Because like we're cutting stuff, and it goes back to do we need that or do we want that? Like, do we need that? And every year, which is crazy, in 1 year, we find $800 to $1,000 a month that we get rid of.
Yeah.
Right. So it could either, whether it's a private lesson somewhere that they're still charging you, or a subscription, or it's just insane.
And you don't feel it. You don't feel when you get $20 taken out of your account, right? Right. But if you're looking at it and you're reviewing it, whether it's every quarter, every month, whatever it is, and I'm like, man, you know what? Like sometimes I'll just send a screenshot to my wife. I'm like, what is this? Can you check this out? And then sometimes we look at it and say, wow, we spent $200, $300 on Uber Eats last month. Are you kidding me? Right?
Yeah, and like since inflation started a couple of years ago, we've been doing that more aggressively. Like, hey, we gotta find we're gonna have to, we're gonna have to find a way to make things work here. Because we have investment goals, right? So like we have a certain amount that we can spend on monthly expenses, and then everything else is for investments. And so we've been able to maintain that at the same level, even when things like the grocery bill doubling in price, gas going up to $4. Like even with all those things changing around us, we've been able to just cut. So like, I do internet only now. Like I cut the cable. I was paying $290 a month for that. So I was able to get rid of that, get cable only. We had, it was an adjustment. I cut subscriptions, and it was funny. I always tell my clients this. I was like, cut the subscriptions until someone complains. And I remember I cut the Apple Music, right? So I cut, because that's like what, $37, $38 a month.
Until your daughter was like,
my daughter was like, I can't play any of my dance songs, and I was like, all right, we'll get it back. And so you just add it back on.